Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus3 Futures and Commodities show. This is the monthly version where we'll take a 10,000-foot view by scrolling through the monthlies of all the markets that we cover. My name is Ben Maldonado. As always, I'm here with Barry Hederachi. How are you, Barry?
Doing pretty well.
Ready to go up to 10,000 feet and see how the world looks?
Let's do it. We got some time before the CPI tomorrow. So
Yeah. So here's the things we'll be covering. We're going to cover the equity markets, NQs, ES. We'll cover Bitcoin. We'll cover the dollar, gold, silver, copper, the metals there. We'll cover the grains. We'll cover the softs. And then we'll cover crude and natural gas. So we're going to take a quick trip through so you get a good view of what the bigger picture looks like in these markets.
all right.
Well, Bitcoin, we'll start with Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, as you can see, for the last 4 months, we've basically been inside of this bar from back in May. So it's not terrible, but it's definitely not bullish. I mean, you think with the weakness that we'd seen, we'd get some kind of bounce, and all we're doing is going sideways. The key level is the half square here. You know, on a monthly basis, that's 17,500. Call it. If we lose that, then we're probably heading down into the ABC and in this target box area. But there's not. It's sort of been in a holding pattern for the last 4 months. I mean, anything you have to add here on Bitcoin?
Well, it's a holding pattern, but it's looking weaker. So we'll have to play it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that half square is the key, I suppose. And when that goes,
we should see a lot more activity in this
can
market.
open up quite a bit of space. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump over to the equity markets. Here's the ES. Now I want you to look at this closely because ES is hovering right above half square support right now, which call it 3540. And as long as we stay above that, there's hope that, okay, we can stabilize here and maybe bounce up and test the full square. But once we lose that half square, which I think is more probable than not, you know, it opens up the full square and you're talking 3140, 3135 down here. So not a lot real bright and sunny here when we lost this full square. You know, that was key. 3950 was a key spot. You know, we pushed down in the initial lows and then we popped right back above it. And now we're back below it again and making fresh lows. So the next key spot is this half square. How about you, Barry? What's key for you on this chart?
Yeah, I think the half square is the key. That's the level to watch. Where is that?
That's 3540.
Yeah. Yeah. So anywhere 35 to 3550, that's the area to watch. Monthly basis, monthly.
Right. And if we lose that, then you open up the full square, which is, you know, again, about 31.
If we lose that, then yeah, we could go a couple of squares.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll take that. We'll take it one half square at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's jump over and look at the NQs. Now, the thing to notice here, notice how the NQs were dancing with this half square, you know, at the March lows, and then we bounced up and we couldn't get above the full square. We closed last month below it, and we've already made a lower low below it.
Mm-hmm.
So here, I think, and we've seen it in the market recently, NQs are leading ES lower. Just like they led on the way up, they're actually leading on the way down as well. So now the next target, as long as we're below that half square, you're talking about 9,400. You know, basically the highs in, you know, this high area in 2019 that we saw before the COVID crash.
Mm-hmm.
So right now the key level on a monthly basis is 11,250. Below it, we're very weak and vulnerable. Above it, you can try and stabilize and maybe, you know, make a run back up here. Preponderance of evidence is to the downside, you know, because we're below that half square and we lost it. Anything else to add on NQs?
Just I noticed the on the S&P we're looking for the half square support. Here we lost the half square, so it's
Exactly.
tilting a little bit to the negative.
Yep. And if it continues to lead like it has been doing on the downside, it doesn't portend well for the ES holding that half square that we
Well,
talked
plus
about
we took out last month's low already, so
already.
so
Yeah.
that's a done deal. No matter what, we took out the low. No,
Yes.
and for the whole thing to reverse, we'd have to take out the high.
Yeah, which would be a heck of a move. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah.
Just not likely. But as long as we're below that half square, it's weakness is the call. All right,
Yep.
let's jump over to the dollar. We had a request from a follower to make sure that the dollar was included in the monthly
Hmm.
review, and I think it's a good idea, especially how key the dollar's been lately. So we haven't done this chart before, so let's start with the '08 low, right? We made the low in the great financial crisis, and we've been in a nice steady uptrend with some sideways pauses, right? We had two sideways corrections for years. I mean, not like a month or anything, or 2 weeks or 6 months. These were year-long corrections, and then we've broken decisively out of it. The key thing, and Barry, you've been covering it on the weekly review, on the daily and the weekly, is the pullback is holding above this full square area. I mean, as long as we do that, it continues to be bullish. So on a monthly basis, the key level I'm watching is around 110.
Hmm.
As long as we can hold that 110, we can go up and challenge this half square and make a new high, which is around 117. And I think you have some numbers around 117 as well, didn't you?
Right there, a little bit under 117, roughly, 116, to 117, but I'd say closer to 117. So
Mhm. Now understand the trend is long in the tooth, right? You're talking about '08 until 22. It's a long trend, but this leg could be, the blow off leg. You could see 123, you could see 130 potentially. The next level we want to watch is right around 117, which is near the old highs we saw in 2000, 2001.
hmm.
So while everyone wants to call a top in the dollar, until we get below this 110 area, it still looks bullish to me. Anything else to add there on the dollar?
Yeah, it's bullish. We got more to go.
That's a good summary.
Yep.
All right, let's jump over to bonds.
Hmm.
Bonds are in a tricky spot on a monthly basis. We've been dancing with this support level in this 126 and a half area for a while, last month and now this month, and we're starting to get stuck below it. If we get stuck below it, it opens up the next half square, which is, in about the 105 area. So this is still a very bearish chart. We couldn't even get up to the half square on the counter trend, the 2-month counter trend we saw. We've already taken out the low this month compared to last month. So not a lot you can say bullish. We took out a 40-year trend line here recently and then retested it. Not a lot bullish you could say about bonds. The only thing you could say is if you can hold this 126 and a half level, somehow get above that, you can maybe stabilize a little bit. But while we're below it, you're looking at 105. Anything else to add here on bonds?
Well, just hold on to your hats, Ben, because with that close below the square, looks like we have a ways to go.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep. Par certainly seems in the realm of possibility in the bigger picture.
Yeah, I was gonna say it, but then I decided not to.
but it's true.
Yeah,
Par
it's true.
is
It's
definitely on the table. All right, let's go check out the grains. So here's wheat.
true.
And the
Mhm.
grains are interesting because they're all three in sort of a different stage, even when you look at them for this sort of higher time frame of the monthlies. Wheat had this tremendous move higher, sort of double topped with 2007, 2008 highs, and then we had a pretty strong pullback, but it pulled right back to the full square.
Mhm.
Of course, it pushed a little bit like it always does, and then we've rallied back up, and now we're battling here at this half square. So this is the next sort of level we want to watch on the bigger picture. And you're talking about 905, call it. Once we can get above and settle on 905 on top of that, then the bull trend is in force, and you can confidently look for higher prices on the bigger time frame. The chart is bullish. This is a normal pullback, dramatic, but a normal pullback in a commodity that moves pretty strongly. So 905, I think, is the next key monthly basis to watch.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on wheat?
Oh, it's all bullish. I think we're good to go.
Mhm.
Yeah, making higher highs, bar over bar.
Yeah, and this month we did take out
Mhm.
last month's high as
That
well.
reversal was the key last month. We were watching that, so we called that out. So now we made a higher high. So let's see how it plays out. I mean, I don't know how you can go wrong being long wheat, but especially when the charts are all pointing towards that. We'll see how it plays out.
Agreed. Also, these shaded boxes are just sort of some potential targets. You can, as you're watching the video, if you want to check it out, see where some potential targets on this last move might be. That's some ballpark figures for you.
And just to remind everybody, if you guys like the work we do, please remember to click the likes and the alerts.
So here's corn. A lot like we saw with the ES and the NQs, where the NQs were leading, ES was following. I think wheat's following corn as well. And here's why. So corn was battling at the half square for the last 2 months. And this month so far, we've got a decisive move above. We actually made air above the half square here. And so the half square level, which I think is important to watch, call it 664. As long as we're above that, it opens up, a challenge to the highs we made in early this year, January, February of this year. So corn's a little further along than wheat, but as you can see, same sort of bullish structure, pullback. Here you've got sort of higher lows and higher highs. Maybe it's going to do a 3 drive and we get the 3rd drive up into this target. But that 665, 664 level is key here. Above that, full speed ahead with a bullish move in corn. What comments would you like to make on corn here?
I don't know. I'd say amen to all that. Everything you said.
Yeah, it looks good.
Well, charts are fairly simple now. I mean, this is a simple chart. It's very clear. Direction is up. Looks very bullish. Yeah. What more?
Exactly. Okay, and let's look at the last grain, and that's soybeans. And this is sort of the laggard, right? It's of the 3, it's still sort of banging out its bottom and trying to figure out, okay, do we have a low in here that we can trade off of? We made a high, pulled back. The pullback made a higher low, but we're still, all these bars the last 3 months are inside that last big down bar. So this thing, what I think is going to happen is it's got to come in here and try and test this half square, right? Do some sort of false break and pull back to that 1275 level and touch the half square and then be ready to go. But we're watching it. We're trying to see if there's indication in the price action on the weeklies, on the dailies, on the 4 hours that the tide has shifted and turned here. Otherwise, I haven't been mentioning it or bringing it up on the weekly show just because of that ambiguity we have right now, whether we have a low in or we got to go down and test or do some sort of false break. Bigger picture, it's still bullish. We're above the half square. We're above this 6, 7 year correction consolidation, and the pullback has been relatively modest off the highs we saw earlier this year. I know beans is a little tricky here, Barry. What sage advice do you have in terms of the chart when you look at it?
Well, it looks bullish to me because just the way the pullback, last 3 months have been behaving. We held above the half square really well. We held above the last year's lows really well. And well, I think it's looking fairly bullish. I don't know if it'll even have enough to get down to the square, but if it does, great. But looks like, beans are bringing up the rear, so we'll see how it works.
Yeah, and I think watching the lower time frames, like the 4 hour and the daily, will give us a heads up that, hey, it's turned the corner and it's a better buy now. Now let's look at the softs. We'll start with sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar's an interesting chart in that, a lot like coffee, the correction here has been more of a sideways correction, more of like burning off time as opposed to, big, strong moves down in price. It's been bouncing between this approximately 20 and 17 and a half for almost a year now, a little over a year. And recently, I brought it up on the last weekly show. We saw a strong move up last week, multiple days closing at a high in a row, and we're getting above this really key level on the monthly, which is around 1860, 1865. Closing above there on a monthly basis basically captures the half square for us. And so we've been battling there. You can see in here, battling there for the last 3-4 months. And now we're finally pushing up and getting some air above that. So a close above that this month would be a big signal from a big picture perspective that the correction's over in sugar and we're ready to go up and at least challenge this upper trend line, which is around 20 and a quarter. And then if we break out there, it's up to the full square, which is around 23 and a half. So this is one I'm really interested in, because when a market doesn't correct dramatically in price, but just sort of chops and goes sideways, it tells you there's not a lot of sellers, and any kind of demand comes in for the shares or for the commodity, and this thing's going to fly. So I'm really bullish on sugar, just waiting for confirmation of price to be able to get involved. What say you on sugar?
I'm a little sweet in sugar. I've been.
Yeah.
It just looks good. It's just one of those trades that, you have to be patient, let it set up and take your shot. And it's been setting up. So we might have to be a little patient next couple of months, but it's brewing, right? So.
And it seems like there's a bid coming into it too, just based on the end of last week and the follow through we're seeing this week.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's time. The correction may be ending soon. We just got to watch the lower time frames and be ready to hop
it's definitely
on.
worth taking a shot here. So.
Yep. All right, let's go to the next one. Next one's cotton. Now, unlike sugar, cotton has had a hell of a correction, right? We moved a full square, almost, we did like a square and a quarter here on the pullback off of this high. But what I like about cotton is recently we made kind of a false break low, like we made a low and then immediately reversed on the lower time frames.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're kind of fidgeting around in here. Whereas if we can see, like on a daily or a weekly basis, or even a 4-hour, if we can start seeing higher highs and higher lows, we can certainly come up and challenge the full square here around 95 and a half. And then once we get on top of that, we can have confidence that, because look what it would be sitting on top of, the highs here, and then the highs here, coming down highs here, and this whole consolidation, we can be pretty confident that, the next leg up will start if we can sit on top of that, 95, 96 area. So cotton is on the radar, a lot like sugar, a little bit different character, a little bit different pattern, but it's starting to show signs that somebody's interested in buying it and accumulating it, and we want to make sure we keep our eyes on it to pick up on the technical signals to get involved. I know you and I were talking about cotton earlier this week, Barry. What else do you have to add on cotton?
Well, I wish I had more money to get position. Well, I think it's look, this pullback looks good. It's either, we're very close, at least basis monthly, we're within a couple of bars, I think, to get this figured out. Mm-hmm. And it's not figuring out the low like we talked about last week's podcast. It's really about, trying to be able to confirm it soon enough so we can ride the rest of the leg because we know what's coming after this. So it's just trying to confirm that if the low came in.
Yeah, and I think on the last monthly show, you mentioned something too, that we're pulling back right into the apex of this little triangle here. And that's usually a very bullish thing if we can hold that.
Mhm.
So cotton looks good.
All right.
Let's go to the anomaly of all the commodities, this cocoa. This thing has been going sideways for decades. And we continue to sort of narrow down into this into the nose of this triangle, right? As the price gets tighter and tighter and tighter. So there's nothing to do here yet, monthly basis, but we're watching and looking, because I guess it's there's the theory in ballistics is, right, the bigger the base, the farther the projectile goes.
Mhm.
That's what we're looking at here. We're looking at a massive base, right? Even if you'd say, okay, the high was here and the base started here, you're still talking about a 6-7 year base here. That
Right.
if it breaks out, we'll be breaking out of. Whether it breaks down or breaks up, it's going to be a pretty massive move. Nothing to do now but sit and watch and wait and look for the signals, but just keep it on the radar that there's going to be a big move in cocoa coming, much like this move here.
Mhm.
Here's coffee. Here's the other one that has my interest because of the sort of sideways nature and shallow nature of the correction, right? We had this big move up in 21 into early 22. We pulled back, and then we've been battling at this full square for months, 6, 7, 8 months, right? Get little pushes below, and then it goes right back. Little pushes below, then it goes right back above. Right now, today, we're getting a pushback where it's right again on the full square. So as long as we can hold here, reverse out of here, this is really, really bullish from a big picture view. Because all we're doing is we're consolidating at these highs.
Absolutely.
So it's, while frustrating because it's not going anywhere, it's again another one to keep on the radar from a big picture view, which says there's not a tremendous amount of selling going on here. Somebody keeps buying it up and holding it up every time we get down to this full square area. So we watch, we wait for the lower time frames to give us a signal, and then we're going to get involved in coffee when it's the time to go. All right, next let's move on to the metals. Here's gold. Gold's especially interesting to me now because we've talked about this phenomenon many times where before the market makes a big move, there's usually a false break in the opposite direction of the trending move that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Last month we had that in gold, right? It took out all these lows, 1, 2, 3, 4 monthly lows that we had, took them all out, reversed, and now we're coming back and we're testing this half square. This is a critical level from a big picture perspective. Call it 1670. We can hold the 1670 area. That's really bullish on gold. And it should open up the full square, which is, call it 1930. So watch that. We're watching this very, very closely. We're watching this structure here where we got that false break, that clean out move and then a rally. This is the pullback in gold we want to see. Do we get a higher low? Does it hold support? If it does, it's a strong signal that it's a bullish market.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've been covering gold every week on a weekly show. Anything else to add here on the monthly chart that jumps out to you?
No, you covered it all. We're just watching patiently.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's check the next one. Here's silver. Silver on a monthly basis is a little perplexing, right? Because we took out this full square support, came down, rallied hard up, and so far we're failing at that full square.
Mm-hmm.
So on a big picture view, we got to get above this, call it 2080, call it 2080 to 2090 area. Once we get above that, I think you can say, it's all clear on silver. Until we do, there's the possibility we could come down and, take out these lows, and do some sort of false break here, or just mess around here for a while. So that's really a key level on a monthly basis on my chart. And you can see why. It would be above the big consolidation. It would be testing the highs of 2016 and the highs that we made on the way down here in 2013 and 2014. So on a big picture basis, that's really important. Also on this pullback, do we get a higher low? If we get a higher low here, that can give us more confidence. We can drop down to the daily or the weekly or the 4 hour and say, okay, are we getting that shift that we do see at corners in the lower time frames that hasn't shown up in the monthly yet? Anything else to add on silver?
Well, it's the same game, just waiting for that right signal. For now it's looking a little weaker, under the square, under that could be kind of a little bit of a fake out also. So let's just watch it carefully. For now it's on, well, we're watching.
Yeah, we're watching very closely too. Here's copper. Here's the last of the metals. Copper has done really, really good job. And again, a lot like cotton and some of these other markets, it's had a pretty substantial pullback, right? We came back 1.5 squares, but look at where it found support. Full square, previous highs above the consolidation that we broke out of in 2020. So copper, we're watching, since it made that low, it's kind of been chopping around. We pushed up, we pulled back, doing what it needs to do to sort of set a base above this full square. As long as we're above the full square, we can say, copper's a better buy. On the upside, the half square is key. That's where it stopped the counter trend rally, the first counter trend rally off of the low, call it in the 380 area. So 380 is the upside, and on the downside, we want to see it hold around 318, 319. I know you added copper to your rotation, Barry. Anything else you're seeing in copper from a bigger picture?
It looks, technically it looks bullish. It looks like we came down to the proper level. We're holding. There's support there. And long as we can hold these lows and if we start turning up, I think we could be in for a run.
I agree.
Yeah. Or at least consolidate up above. So the key is the couple of lows that we've had. So we can hold above that. We're in good shape.
Agreed. All right, let's jump over to the oils, energy. Here's crude. I love the monthly in crude. It really helped us, zero in when we made that plunge to say, hey, pay attention. I know you were all over it on the weekly show. This was a good low, right? It's a good low for multiple reasons. Half square, call it 75, 76. Sat on top of the highs from 2018 and on top of this whole structure going back to 2014, 2015. Right now, we're battling at the full square, which is, call it 89, 88, 89. That's the next level we want to capture. We can, this pullback that's going on the shorter time frames that you can see, we want to get a higher low. We want to see a reversal there. And then we want to see it settle over this 88, 89 level. Because you settle on that, then you open up the next half square on a monthly, which is 102. So it looks to me that the low is in for the swing. Now we just need to see confirmation on the shorter time frames, that we can, on this pullback, we put in a higher low, and then capturing 89 on the upside opens up that next full square. What are your thoughts on crude?
I think that low looks good. I also think that low looks good. And just looking to take positions on the long side.
Right.
We're actively trading this, so I think it's tradable. We got to watch this. Obviously, it's kind of a still cornering, but I think there's enough there to trade.
Agree. Looks very, very bullish. And last but not least, natural gas, the widowmaker. So this little puppy is doing, again, while it's volatile as hell. I mean, look at these bars. In 1 month, it's going from the top of the square to the bottom of the square, to the top of the square to the bottom of the square. But there's order in that chaos. Look where it pulled back to, right? We made a high right on the full square, and we pulled back right on a full square that's sitting on top of previous highs, right? So if you step back and you sort of look at the monthly, you say, that's not a bearish chart. It's not acting bearish. Yes, it's volatile as hell. And if you're trading this thing, on a lower time frame, it's crazy. But if you look at it on a monthly basis, we've had the pullback. We went up and made a high. Now we're pulling back again. Do we get a higher low here? Key levels on this. On the downside, you're talking about 570. We want to hold 570 to keep the bullish sort of scenario intact. And on the upside, to really open it up, you got to get above 770. If we get above 770, you're opening up the full square and you're going to challenge the highs that we saw earlier this year. I like natural gas. It's just letting it sort of play out, find a good spot where you have the support and you have the odds in your favor to get involved, and then you can handle the volatility because going in, hey, if it hits this spot, I'm out and I'm comfortable. Before you get in, you're comfortable with the loss that you would make if the stop is hit. What are your thoughts on natural gas, Barry?
Well, I'm also kind of watching to see where the final bottom sort of on this leg would come in.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like we're close, like some of the other items. And well, just watching for now, seeing how we, it is a widow maker, so it's got to watch it a little bit, a little bit close. But it looks like we're getting there.
I agree. It's kind of hammering out its bottom, and we're just looking for signals from the lower time frames to get involved.
Exactly.
I mean, the bottom line, if you look across the spectrum of all the markets we just sort of raced through, commodities as a whole continue to be in corrections. They're in different phases depending on the commodity. Some have put in a low and are making, enough progress with price action to where you can say, okay, the low's in, now we're working. We just want to find a place to get in. Others are still like nat gas, still trying to find, do we have a low in place? Can we now watch price action for a place to get in? So the bullish trend from a monthly perspective is still intact in the commodity markets. Different phases for different markets. On the risk markets, if you're talking about bonds, if you're talking about equities, if you're talking about Bitcoin, those all remain, bearishly positioned. There's nothing yet that shows us, okay, we've reached a bottom or we got a high probability of a bottom. In fact, it's all of them seem to be pointing towards additional weakness coming up, especially from the big picture view that we're looking at here on the monthlies. Anything else you want to add, Barry? Sort of a summation in terms of your view on the monthlies?
Well, I think the commodities have had a decent pullback correction, even basis monthly. And so this is the period to start watching, starting really, it's a new quarter. This quarter, I think, is going to be a pivotal quarter. And just to see where these lows come in, and then we can start trading the next leg. It's been a patient process, right?
Yeah, you have to be patient. But when they move, you can see from the charts they move. And that's what we're trying to do, is to be prepared and be able to catch those moves.
Yeah. And looking at these monthlies, it looks like we have a lot of opportunity coming up in the coming years, really, couple of 3 years. So
yep.
we'll so you don't have to get you don't want to get ahead of the gun. You want to sort of wait for these things to come in.
Be plenty of opportunities.
Yep.
Anyway, until next month, we will bid you adieu. Great job, Barry, and let's see what we can do when these charts shape up and give us the signals to get involved.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Good job.
All right.
Good coverage.
Thanks.
Talk later. Bye-bye.
Bye.